Welcome to Hollywood latest reports in a moment the world never thought would come. Frances Swaggart, the lifelong partner, co-minister and confidant of the legendary televangelist Jimmy Swaggart, has finally broken her silence. For weeks, rumors had swirled about Jimmy Swaggart's condition, with fans holding on to hope and clinging to faith. But now, in a heart-wrenching televised address and subsequent media statement, Frances Swaggart has confirmed what many feared. Jimmy Swaggart, the iconic voice of American evangelism, is gone, and the truth she revealed about his final days has left millions stunned. The revelation came not with a press conference or a flashy broadcast, but with a solemn, tear-filled moment during the Frances and Friends segment on Son Life Broadcasting Network, the very program Frances had co-hosted for decades beside her husband. Dressed in black, her voice trembling, she looked directly into the camera and said, "He's gone home to be with the Lord." Those words shattered the silence and confirmed the unthinkable. The man who had once preached to millions around the world, who had stirred revivals and controversies alike, had passed away quietly in the arms of his wife and faith. Frances Swaggart didn't stop there. For the first time, she opened up about the final chapter of their journey, a chapter marked by pain, prayer, and ultimately, peace. She recounted Jimmy's final moments, revealing that in the days leading up to his death, he had become more introspective, more tender, and more emotional than ever before. He kept asking if he had done enough, she said through tears. He was worried about the souls he hadn't reached, the people he hadn't saved. But I told him, "Jimmy, you did more than enough." Her words ignited a wave of mourning across the internet. Within minutes, clips of her statement went viral on Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Hashtags like #Jimmy Swaggart, #Frances Swaggart, and #GoneTooSoon began trending. Fans flooded comment sections with prayers, tributes, and memories. Some remembered the revival tents of the 1970s. Others recalled watching his sermons as children. Many simply said, "Thank you, Brother Swaggart." In her address, Frances revealed that Jimmy had been battling a serious illness privately for over 2 years, something the family had chosen not to disclose out of respect for his wishes. He didn't want pity, she said. He didn't want the headlines. He just wanted to preach until his last breath. And that's exactly what he did. According to Frances, Jimmy recorded his final sermon just 10 days before his passing. That recording, she hinted, may be released posthumously as a final message to his followers, a spiritual last will and testament of sorts. Frances also shared deeply personal moments from Jimmy's final hours. She said he had spent his last day reading scripture aloud, holding her hand, and praying for his family and the world. He was tired, she said, but his spirit was strong. And when the moment came, he smiled. He told me, "I see him, Frances, I see the Lord." And then, he was gone. The raw emotion in her voice cracked even the most stoic of listeners. It wasn't just the death of a preacher, it was the end of a spiritual era. Jimmy Swaggart's death marks the close of a long, complex, and often controversial legacy. Rising to prominence in the 1970s and 80s, he became one of the most watched televangelists in the world. At his peak, his broadcasts reached over 500 million people globally. His fiery sermons, soulful gospel music, and unapologetic message of salvation captivated audiences across every continent. But Swaggart's story was also marked by scandal, most notably in 1988, when a prostitution scandal rocked his ministry and tarnished his image. Frances stood by him through it all. In her recent address, she acknowledged the darkest chapters of their lives, but offered a perspective only a devoted wife could. "We were broken people," she said, "but God used us. Even in our flaws, he used us." She admitted the road to restoration wasn't easy, recounting the nights they cried together, prayed for forgiveness, and slowly rebuilt their ministry, brick by brick, soul by soul. After the 1988 scandal, many expected Frances to leave. But instead, she became the anchor of the Swaggart family and ministry. Over time, she gained her own following through the Frances and Friends show, where she discussed theology, current events, and spiritual issues with a straightforward, unfiltered voice. Fans loved her for her boldness, loyalty, and unwavering faith. And now, as the torch passes on, Frances remains a living symbol of endurance and grace. The emotional statement also included a message for their grandson Gabriel Swaggart, who is expected to take on a more prominent role in the ministry moving forward. Frances said, "Jimmy believed in you, Gabriel. He saw your calling. And now, it's your turn." The camera panned to Gabriel seated in the studio audience, wiping tears from his face. It was a quiet but powerful moment, a generational passing of the flame. In the days following her announcement, tributes have poured in from around the world. Major faith leaders such as Joel Osteen, Franklin Graham, and even Pope Francis have issued condolences. Billy Graham's family released a joint statement saying, "Jimmy Swaggart's voice was one of passion, conviction, and courage. He reached millions with the gospel. His legacy will live on." Gospel singers, pastors, and Christian influencers have joined in, creating tribute videos, cover versions of his most iconic songs, and special church services in his memory. Even beyond the Christian world, public figures and celebrities have paid their respects. Country singer Dolly Parton, who once performed with Swaggart in the 1960s, posted a photo of them together with the caption, "Rest easy, Jimmy. You played heaven's chords before you ever got there." Talk show hosts, news anchors, and political leaders have all acknowledged the enormous influence he had on America's religious culture. Frances Swaggart's silence had lasted too long, some say. But when she finally spoke, it was with the voice of a wife, a mother, a ministry partner, and a believer. Her honesty and vulnerability have reignited public fascination with their story, a story of glory, scandal, redemption, and now, legacy. And yet, through the emotion and media frenzy, Frances remained composed. In her final words during the broadcast, she said, "This isn't the end. Jimmy always said that death isn't goodbye, it's just see you later. So until then, I'll keep preaching, praying, and praising." Because that's what he would want. The impact of her words is still unfolding. Churches across the nation have scheduled tribute services. Some Life Broadcasting is airing 24-hour special programming. Jimmy Swaggart's sermons are trending again, and countless people, old and young, are rediscovering his ministry, his music, and now, his final moments through Frances' eyes. Though Jimmy is gone, the voice of Frances Swaggart echoes louder than ever. In breaking her silence, she has not only confirmed the heartbreaking loss, she has reminded the world of the power of faith, resilience, and love that endures all storms. As the initial shock of Frances Swaggart's emotional revelation rippled across the globe, new questions began to rise among both longtime followers and those newly reintroduced to Jimmy Swaggart's life. The legacy he left behind wasn't just confined to sermons and scandals. It was deeply interwoven with the very soul of modern-day American televangelism. And now, with Francis stepping forward and confirming his passing, the public is getting a glimpse of the man behind the pulpit, the man Francis knew better than anyone else. In an exclusive interview with a faith-based magazine just days after her broadcast, Frances Swaggart opened up even further. Speaking softly but with conviction, she said, "You don't spend 70 years of your life with someone and not feel like a part of you has gone with them. But I also know that Jimmy wouldn't want me weeping forever. He'd want the gospel to keep going." When asked how she was coping with the grief, Frances paused and answered, "My strength doesn't come from myself. It comes from the Lord. And it comes from knowing Jimmy is finally at peace. He gave everything he had to this world. There was nothing left unsaid. His last moments were pure, no bitterness, no fear, just peace." One of the most surprising revelations came when Frances shared that Jimmy had been keeping a journal during the final year of his life. A deeply personal account of his thoughts, fears, prayers, and reflections. He wrote to God every night, she said, sometimes just a sentence, other times pages. He didn't want anyone to read it while he was alive, but he told me, "You'll know when to share it." Now, that journal is being considered for publication, with major Christian publishers reportedly in negotiations. Tentatively titled Whispers from the Cross, Jimmy's Final Journal, the collection is said to contain deeply introspective entries where Swaggart reflects on his public failures, his personal regrets, his love for Francis, and his unwavering belief in redemption. Early excerpts released by insiders include phrases like, "I still hear the Lord's voice when the crowd is gone, and if I've helped even one soul reach heaven, then it was worth it." What's clear from Francis's continued remarks is that Jimmy Swaggart's final months were far more spiritual than clinical. Though he battled a private illness, he never gave up his routines. He continued praying with staff, reading the word, and, according to Francis, singing late into the night. "Some nights I would wake up at 3 a.m., and there he was, playing the piano alone, humming old gospel tunes. I knew he was saying goodbye in his own way." Francis also revealed that Jimmy made video messages for several family members to be played after his passing. These heartfelt recordings reportedly contain personal blessings, spiritual encouragement, and even apologies where needed. He was trying to make peace with everyone, she said. He didn't want to leave behind any unfinished business. That was very important to him. Among the most emotional of these messages was the one he left for Frances. According to her, he spoke directly to her in a tone only a husband could have. He said, "Frances, you saved me more times than I can count, not just from the world, but from myself." Frances broke down as she recounted those words. "That's when I lost it. Because Jimmy was layers, and hearing him open his heart like that, even after death, it healed something in me. Meanwhile, the Swaggart family has begun planning a massive public memorial at the Family Worship Center in Baton Rouge. Expected to draw tens of thousands of mourners from across the nation, the event is being billed as a celebration of a life poured out for Christ. Gospel legends like CeCe Winans, Donnie McClurkin, and Shirley Caesar are rumored to be performing tribute songs. Several top pastors are expected to speak, including Franklin Graham, Kenneth Copeland, and even former critics of Swaggart who now seek to honor his contribution to the kingdom. In another stunning announcement, Frances confirmed that a documentary series is in the works. Produced by a major streaming platform, sources say either Netflix or Amazon Prime, the series will be titled The Rise, the Fall, and the Faith of Jimmy Swaggart. The project promises never-before-seen footage from the Swaggart home archives, interviews with former ministry partners, and an inside look at the man behind the media headlines. Frances has agreed to appear in the documentary, offering what she calls her uncensored truth. But even in the midst of media buzz and global reaction, Frances remains focused on her faith. She continues appearing live on Sun Life broadcasting, though now with a quiet air of grief and wisdom. On a recent broadcast, she read aloud Psalm 3:4-18, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and saves those who are crushed in spirit." As she paused, visibly moved, viewers across the globe typed Amen into the live chat. Messages of support are pouring in from every corner of the world. From small churches in Nigeria to mega ministries in Brazil, people are holding candlelight vigils and dedicating Sunday services to Jimmy's memory. One pastor in the Philippines said, "We grew up on Jimmy's sermons. He changed our spiritual DNA. He wasn't just an American preacher, he belonged to all of us." Many are also reflecting on Jimmy Swaggart's music legacy, one that Frances was deeply involved in. Together they recorded over 50 gospel albums. Since the news of his passing, Swaggart's music streams have increased by over 700%, and several of his classic tracks have re-entered gospel charts. Fans are calling for a special vinyl reissue of his most iconic albums, including There Is a River, He Touched Me, and I'll Never Be Lonely. Frances has said she plans to personally oversee these RE releases. Jimmy's voice was filled with the Spirit, she said. Every note he sang was a prayer. It would be a sin to let that music fade away. She also hinted at the possibility of unreleased tracks being shared with the public, songs that Jimmy recorded privately and never intended to commercialize, but which may now be the perfect way to honor his legacy. As for Frances herself, she has made it clear she isn't stepping down. "People have asked if I'm retiring," she said with a soft chuckle. "I say, retire to what? This ministry is my life. Jimmy may be gone, but the calling remains." She is already preparing a series of special broadcasts to honor her late husband, titled Frances Remembers Jimmy. These programs will reportedly include old sermon clips, behind-the-scenes stories, fan letters, and Frances's own commentary on what life was really like, traveling the world with a man both anointed and... As for Frances herself, she has made it clear she isn't stepping down. "People have asked if I'm retiring," she said with a soft chuckle. "I say, retire to what? This ministry is my life. Jimmy may be gone, but the titled Frances Remembers Jimmy. These programs will reportedly include old sermon clips, behind-the-scenes stories, fan letters, and Frances's own commentary on what life was really like, traveling the world with a man both anointed and flawed.